Okay, say it with me now. Fantastic. And you're going to do the other part because I don't got vocals like that. But yes, it's time to talk about the Fantastic Four first steps. I'm really excited. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real reaction and review for the Fantastic Four First Steps. A huge thank you to Marvel Studios and Disney for giving me the chance to see this in IMAX for this review. It started out as an out-of-theater reaction, but what you're about to see is my reaction that turned into a review for this film because, yes, the embargo has lifted, but this is spoiler-free. We ain't getting into no spoilers here, because there's a lot of them out there. Now, before we get into what this movie's all about and my positives, negatives, and if, hey, this really means the MCU is back, welcome to Real James, where I love talking about movies, TV, and all the news in between. And yes, we're going live for San Diego Comic-Con on Thursday afternoon. We're talking all about the Avatar: The Last Airbender panel and the Dragon Prince panel, which I'm so excited to get into. So yes, if y'all want to tune in for that, please go ahead, hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, like this video, and get loud in the comments. And let me know, what do you think of the Fantastic Four First Steps? And you're not allowed to hate on any of the the first family, that Marvel's first family. Those are my people. But anyway, it's time to get into what this film is all about. It's directed by Matt Shakman, who is the visionary behind WandaVision. That's my favorite MCU show. I mean, to date, there's nothing that tops it. And that's why, I got the WandaVision shirt on. And wouldn't you know it, this is like a retro sort of episode. Y'all remember that episode of WandaVision? Or the entire series? But that's what the Fantastic Four First Steps is all about. So perfect to bring him on board. But the film also stars a stacked cast led by Pedro Pascal, who plays Reed Richards. You have Vanessa Kirby, who plays Sue Storm. And then you have Joseph Quinn, who plays Johnny Storm. And rounding out the Fantastic Four is Ebon Moss-Bachrach, who plays Ben Grimm, or The Thing. So guys, the film itself, it is not an origin story, which I actually love, and we talk about that in a little bit. But the film, easy to understand. Hey, listen, Galactus is on the way. He has a big old bad intergalactic human planet eater, sort of human. I don't know, but the dude is scary. And in this movie, the Fantastic Four are forced to balance their roles as heroes with the strength of their family bond. The Fantastic Four must also defend Earth from a ravenous space god called Galactus. And then, well, you got the Herald, Silver Surfer, who is Shala Bal in this film. So guys, I don't even want to continue giving you a little tease of what's to come. I just wanted to dive into my reaction and get into my review. So, all right, let's roll the tape. Let's get into my real reaction and review for the Fantastic Four First Steps. I'm so excited. Alrighty, you guys. Well, I just got out of the Fantastic Four First Steps, and let me tell y'all something, okay? The run the MCU is on right now, from Thunderbolts to Ironheart to now the Fantastic Four, it needs to inspire confidence in others like it's inspiring confidence in me, because I haven't seen the MCU go on a run like this since the very end of the Infinity Saga before Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame. It's been a little while since we've seen, or at least I've seen, the MCU go on a run of consistent quality like this. I am very, very happy with the Fantastic Four First Steps. The actors all work very well together, like Pedro Pascal, who to me is the scene stealer in most of this film, but it's Vanessa Kirby who is this gentle force. She is able to be the glue for our Fantastic Four. Now, I will say the movie is not absolutely what I would consider a great top-tier MCU movie. I am hovering around a certain rating in my head here, but let's get right into the positives, guys. I want to just now dive right into why I really, really loved my time with this film. So it all begins with the direction by Matt Shakman, who, in my opinion, is still one of the most innovative minds the MCU has in their arsenal. I loved his work with WandaVision, and that 60s retro, it's a great look for this film, and it fits, it flows so effortlessly in and out of scenes. We're weaving in between different locations, intergalactic, on Earth. It just really worked for me, and there's a cohesive vision here, and Matt Shakman, to me, is able to deliver a very fresh approach to what I would consider an IP that Marvel has that's never really been done very well from start to finish, but we finally have what I would consider the definitive Fantastic Four movie on the big screen. And it's great to see what Matt Shakman did here, and I really think a lot of the success of this film will be due to his vision. And if you're wondering, well, how in the world are they going to connect this to the MCU as a whole? Well, don't be too worried. Because thankfully, even though there are some things we'll get into in my negatives, the film does lean into building up to the big fight with Galactus, but also reminding the audience that this movie is going to be very important for Avengers Doomsday, which is, of course, the first Avengers film in this saga, and then there's Secret Wars right after. The action is grandiose at times, and I loved to see the scale of Galactus, especially in that third act. But for me, Galactus was just a force to be reckoned with from the very first time we see the Herald, or Shalabal, bring in the Fantastic Four into Galactus' home. And he's incredible in this movie. I mean, my gosh, you guys, the way that they were able to work on the VFX for Galactus is incredible in its own right. But then you have Ralph Ineson, who voices Galactus. The man's voice is so recognizable, and he's got this booming quality about his voice, so the cadence is sinister, it's scary, it's demanding of your attention. And I think that's what this movie does very well, which is it demands your attention and it keeps your attention. Even though it's not necessarily a very long movie, I think it could have been longer and I would have been well on board with it. We talked about Ralph Ineson. Now let's get into the acting then. We might as well jump into our Fantastic Four. I absolutely love what Pedro Pascal was able to do as Reed Richards. He gives off this very studious, academic type, while also being very personable. But what's really good is that the movie doesn't give you that personable side of Reed Richards right away. You know, it works you up to that, and I loved what he did. He's the scene stealer for me in every moment he's in, and you know, when it comes to his co-star, Vanessa Kirby, I've been a Vanessa Kirby fan for a long time, so this is not new for me to see her in a role that she absolutely crushed. But as Sue Storm, I was just so happy with her performance. She also, for me, was the glue for the family. And she's got this motherly approach, but don't mess with her kid, bro, okay? Don't mess with our boy Franklin, you know? Like, she was about that action, boss. So I really loved her work in this role. And then when it comes to Johnny Storm, of course played by Joseph Quinn, and then Ebon Moss-Bachrach as the Thing, or Ben Grimm, those are the two performances that I thought were good. The acting was good. It was just, for me, the writing and character development for those two characters, and that's maybe more in the negatives, but we'll get into that. I will say, though, both of them really fit the bill for both of those characters. And when it comes to the technical aspects of the movie, we already talked about how the VFX looks stunning, but seeing this in IMAX adds another layer to the film. From the very first liftoff sequence that we get with the Fantastic Four going to space, it was unreal. I literally turned to my buddy Austin and I said, bro, when's the last time you felt like this in an MCU film? It's really cool, you know? I really loved the sound design, the VFX work, the set design was gorgeous. So on a technical front, this movie really nails the time period it's been placed in, you know? I thought it was beautiful to see how Earth 868, or yeah, 868, right? Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I loved how it looked with this 60s retrofuturistic sort of look, and it worked for me. The Fantastic Car was awesome. It just, all the VFX, it was all, I mean, it blew me away at times, and that's really cool to see. So kudos to the VFX artists, set designers, costume designers. They rocked it here, you know? There were a couple moments where I saw the VFX not necessarily, it looked a little muddy. It wasn't necessarily great. You know, the green screen bled through the screen. You could see that thing, dude. But, you know, it happens every now and then in an MCU movie. You know, even Avengers Endgame, for as great as that movie is, had obvious green screen moments that you could see. But I did like, for the most part, how that was few and far between. You know, for the most part, yes, the VFX is awesome. And don't worry, we're not done talking about the technical aspects of this movie because, hello, Michael Giacchino composed the score for Fantastic Four. Did that rhyme? Is anyone going to hear me in my car? Probably not, but you guys will. Michael Giacchino is a master of his craft. He's one of the greatest living composers, but in my opinion, one of the greatest of all time. And his Fantastic Four theme song alone is awesome. But the soundtrack overall, it adds flavor to this film. It feels more immersive because of the score in so many scenes. So Michael Giacchino just continues to prove why he's the most consistent composer outside of John Williams in the game and Hans Zimmer. All three of them are just excellent. But when you have Michael Giacchino playing in this sandbox, I felt like this was able to like tap into his quirky side of his music composition. And then you got the more serious moments, drama, intrigue. Like you felt all these emotions from start to finish because of his composition. So that's why I'm so glad they already released the soundtrack early. Thank God, because I cannot wait to listen to this sucker on the way home. And I do have one more positive to share, but we'll get to that in my final thoughts. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the negatives for this film. So I know a lot of people are probably going to expect an origin story for the Fantastic Four, and you don't get that here, which is cool. They jump you right into it, akin to James Gunn's Superman, but they do give you a little bit exposition at times, and that would come in the form of montages. Now, for the most part, I don't mind them throwing us into the full this quickly, but I had some concerns and some issues with how the film structured its storytelling at times. Now, I say that at times because it really only happened in the first act, but the movie is very montage heavy for at least the first 45 minutes of the film. You do get a decent chunk of your storytelling through the news broadcast or through, I don't know, just a ton of narration or exposition through montage is what you're visually seeing. That's not bad, but at times I wish the film would slow down a little because, again, the runtime is not heavy here. So you could spend a little bit more time with these characters and developing them. And that's where the film sort of fails with Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm. I think that those two characters were left on the sideline a little too much for my liking because they do have depth, thanks to the acting of both Ebon Moss-Bachrach and Joseph Quinn. Now, do I think that both of them were worthless in the film? Absolutely not. They played a big part. A big part. We ain't spoiling nothing here, but a big part. But I do think the movie could have benefited from spending a little bit more time outside of the montages and giving us more show don't tell. I think the film does break out of that mold, thankfully, after the first act, and we get more marination happening. I'm using the cooking term because, you know, the thing likes to cook. But yeah, that happens a lot more in the second and third acts of the film. But the first act, I was like, oh, it's a little jumpy at times. And I also felt that the film maybe rushed a little too much to Galactus. I get why they had to do it. But see, that's me. I love a good linger. And sometimes when you have a stacked cast like this, you come to expect, heck yeah, I want to linger with Pedro, Pascal, and Vanessa Kirby in these moments of drama. But they got to get to Galactus. So while I did love the Galactus sequences and set pieces, maybe you could have pumped the brakes a little. So I guess that's really my biggest negative in this movie is pacing. Sometimes the pacing is a little off, which is why I will say it's not in the top echelon of MCU films. But here's the thing, the MCU is historically very strong. So the top echelon's reserved for some of those heavy hitters for me. And the Fantastic Four is knocking on that doorstep. So maybe this is a good time for us to get right into my overall thoughts for the Fantastic Four First Steps. And I will say, you guys, this movie got me excited finally for the rest of this saga. And I'm talking about the multiverse saga. Now, I'm cautiously optimistic on Avengers Doomsday now. Before I was totally out on that film because you're bringing back Robert Downey Jr. Are you serious? But there are events that transpire in this movie that get me excited about where they're building towards. And then you look back, Ironheart, Thunderbolts. I mean, yeah, man, MCU's on a little run right now that I've missed. And I don't know, this gives me a little bit more hope. I mean, again, Avengers Doomsday, you got a lot of nostalgia casting here, but there are events that happen here that made me think, well, shoot, I think I'm getting excited for the end of the multiverse saga and what they could accomplish. But the Fantastic Four on its own as a film is just so much fun It is exactly what I wanted from a Fantastic Four movie, and at times I found myself really bought into this world that Matt Shakman and company were building. I mean, there were moments where I was just taking in the scenery. The retro futuristic look worked for me, and the casting was perfect. I mean, man, Pedro Pascal is just, man, he's such a legend, bro. Like, how is he doing this? I don't know how he balances all these characters, but I think that there's a level of work he's put into researching Reed Richards, because even the mannerisms, I'm like, this is ripped from a comic book. So, yes, the entire cast works so well. The chemistry is awesome. There were some issues with pacing that I had and a lack of character work for some of our cast. But for the most part, the Fantastic Four First Steps is a winner for the MCU. And if I had to rate it right now, I'm at a 4 out of 5. Like, it would be like an 85%, you know what I mean? Maybe I bump it up. But right now, I'm at like a, that 4 out of 5, like a high 4 out of 5. So you guys gotta let me know down below in the comments though. What do you think of my review for the Fantastic Four First Steps? I plan to do this part of the review at home, but I'm so excited I wanted to talk to you in the car. And let me know down below in the comments when you see the film. What do you think of the Fantastic Four First Steps? You got some hope again for the MCU? And hey, leave this video a like if you enjoyed my review for more content like this, because guys, it's about to be a time this week, all right? So much is happening for San Diego Comic-Con, and we're going to try to cover it on the channel. So, I love you guys. Thanks so much for watching. God bless y'all, and I'll catch you at the next screening.